The Sega Master System, a console that pioneered FM sounds with certain games in Japan, a console that provided colorful games reminiscent of arcade games during that time, a console that could have made an impact in North America with games like Golvelius, Ys the Vanished Omens, Kenseiden, and Phantasy Star, but tragically was a victim of the Nintendo monopoly. How did this system inspire a rebellion that would become the envy of many places in the world? Let's go back to 1983. In July of 1983, the great console war between Sega and Nintendo began when both companies released their consoles. Sega had the SG-1000 and Nintendo had the Family Computer System. While Sega did not have a major impact like Nintendo did, Sega did come up with some interesting games during the era of the SG-1000. Examples: arcade ports like Monaco GP, Zoom 909, a port of the 1982 Sega arcade Buck Rogers, and Flicky. But nothing was more groundbreaking at the time than Girls Garden in 1984. This was the first game ever designed by Yuji Naka, a man who would go on to create one of the greatest video game franchises of all time, Sonic the Hedgehog. Naka also designed the groundbreaking Phantasy Star, which I will talk about later. It was groundbreaking since Girls Garden happened to be one of the first games, if not the first, to feature a female as lead character. Oh yes, this preceded an arcade called Sega Ninja a year later. The objective of this game is to collect 10 flowers, then return to the shop. Nice English. You would have to avoid the bears and avoid falling in the river. You can see why Girls Garden would become a hit in Japan in 1984. Due to the overall poor sales of the SG-1000, Sega decided to create something different. Something that would put the Famicom to shame. In October of 1985, Sega released a revolutionary console called the Mark III, a console that was considered an improved variable of the SG-1000. Why was this considered groundbreaking? According to the official specifications of the Mark III, it had 32 colors, 16 for sprite and 16 for background. It was something never seen before in 1985. Then you had an external drive that provided FM sound capabilities. This was a first because you got to hear games in the sound of a Yamaha YM2413 sound chip. So basically, it would be the equivalent of hearing the Sega Genesis, but the Mark III preceded the Genesis. This would essentially mean that the Sega Mark III was the first video game console to feature FM sound capabilities. When the Mark III was released in October of 1985, there were only two games, first being Pit Pot and another being Satellite 7. According to designer Mark Cerny, the early games of the Mark III, and eventually the Sega Master System, were difficult to develop because they were given a deadline of 3 months with the technology the company had. You gotta remember that Sega's technology was revolutionary. The technical aspects of a Master System were far superior to the NES and Atari 7800. Because of the tight deadlines alongside Nintendo strong-arming third-party companies in Japan, the Sega Mark III did not sell well. However, they looked at North America and thought to themselves that this would be a good time to step foot. Sega decided to design a new system that would be more appealing to the eyes of North American consumers, thus the Sega Master System was created. While the Sega Mark III did feature FM sound capabilities, the Sega Master System did not. Why didn't Sega sell external hard drives of FM sound for the Master System in North America? Well, the flop of the Mark III in Japan could be the main reason for it. My question is, what would have happened if the Master System had an FM chip built in for North American audiences? Would it have busted Nintendo's monopoly sooner, or would people not have cared? I'll get to that later. Nonetheless, the Sega Master System launched in North America in September of 1986. This is where the Master System became innovative. How so? If you look at the back of the console, there is an AV connector. Now here in North America, if you see a Model 1 AV connector for the Sega Genesis, it's the same connector for the Sega Master System. However, in Japan, the AV connector had 9 pins that would be used for SCART, a connector to a TV. Since America did not have SCART connections, this meant that you had to use an RF adapter. Why am I talking about this? Because if you had an AV SCART for the Sega Master System, you would immediately get better picture quality. In a sense, this means the Sega Master System would be innovative for having native RGB specifications for better color quality and higher picture quality. Pretty neat if you think about it. With today's technology, you can get a SCART converter and AV cables to put on the TV to access RGB specifications. That's as close to HD as you can get for 8-bit games. And the video games themselves would be the talk of the Sega Master System. While many people started off with card games on the Sega Master System, the original Master System was packaged with a console, controller, a gun, and the game combo Hang On and Safari Hunt. Sega's answer to the Super Mario Bros. Duck Hunt package for the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1986. How did this turn out? How about I show you footage of Hang On and Safari Hunt? In terms of technical superiority, it's obvious that the Sega Master System had it. The sounds on Hang On was not bad, the graphics were mind-blowing, the controls were decent, and the gameplay was fun. As for Safari Hunt, it had better colors. But what made this game different from Duck Hunt was the fact that you gotta shoot more than one animal. Ducks, rabbits, fish, toucan birds, bears, monkeys, spiders, etc. Yeah, if this game was made in 2019, animal rights activists would have shut down Sega for promoting cruelty to animals.
What's that I hear? Prosecuting me for eating chicken? You see this? Look at this. Oh yeah, that's so delicious, isn't it? Now watch this. Oh. Yeah, I love that. Look at that. Oh yeah. Think I'm abusing animals? This is delicious. I'm committing animal abuse, huh? Come at me then. Let's see what you got. Oh, and for those of you who are wondering who I am, I'm the guy who volunteered to edit Edray's video, so... Hello!
But the best had yet to come during 1986. Due to the success of Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo Entertainment System, Sega wanted to create a character that would become the unofficial mascot of Sega named Alex Kidd. What do I mean by unofficial? According to NintendoLife.com, an anthropomorphic rabbit by the name of Professor Asabin was Sega's first official mascot. During the era of the SG-1000, Professor Asabin would appear on instruction manuals telling you how to play the game or give a backstory. Subsequently, that would change in 1986 when Sega released an arcade classic called Fantasy Zone. Opa Opa. The protagonist of the game would become Sega's official mascot up until 1991. Both Fantasy Zone and Alex Kidd would carry Sega in the 1980s in both arcades and consoles. Nonetheless, Alex Kidd and Miracle World would be the first in a series of Alex Kidd games on the Sega Master System. Released in 1986, this game would be remembered for not so stellar controls and tough gameplay. However, there was a decent story, good music, and crazy boss battles. The controls of the game would require you to time your movements to avoid getting hit. Unlike Super Mario Bros., if you get hit, you are immediately dead. This game would be popular in Europe and Australia. While the Sega Master System outsold the Atari 7800 in 1986, the Master System would be in trouble for one main reason. During the 1980s, Nintendo had a stronghold in the video game market in Japan and North America, creating contracts for third-party companies to adhere to the rules of Nintendo. Because of these situations, third-party companies like Capcom, Konami, Hudson, Square, LJN, Toy Headquarters, and even Bandai were not allowed to develop games for Sega nor Atari. While Sega did get third-party support from Irem, Falcom, and Compile, the majority of the Sega Master System library were either ports of arcade games from Sega or straight from Sega for the Master System. The reason this hurt Sega was because Capcom and Konami back in the 1980s were the most popular third-party gaming companies. It didn't help that Nintendo strong-armed retailers, something that I talked about in the Nintendo Monopoly. Because of strong-arming third-party companies and retailers, Nintendo spent a lot of money advertising Nintendo in all medium. That was what gave Nintendo 83% of the gaming market in North America. This meant that the Sega Master System would not stand a chance in terms of marketability. I can make an hour-long video about the video game Phantasy Star, but I would rather listen to Happy Console Gamer talk about Phantasy Star for 1 hour. Nonetheless, Phantasy Star is widely regarded to be the greatest video game in the history of the Sega Master System. Originally released in Japan in December of 1987, Phantasy Star would be the first role-playing game to feature science fiction and fantasy, hence the name Phantasy Star. Created by Kotaro Hayashida, Yuji Naka would be given the task of designing this groundbreaking video game. You had a compelling story about a girl looking to avenge the death of her brother against a tyrant that wanted immortality. You had flying vehicles, interesting enemies, awesome music, decent controls, and gameplay that would have you glued to your TV for hours. It was only a matter of time before it hit the shelves in North America. Why did it take Sega 11 months to release Phantasy Star in North America? Well, it came down to transitions and sound changes. In Japan, Phantasy Star had FM sound, so outside Japan, the composer had to work on the music again for the PSG sound, aka standard 8-bit sound. I don't have the official numbers, but some people have speculated that Phantasy Star sold 1 million copies on the Sega Master System just as Sega was transitioning from the Master System to the Genesis in North America. The Genesis would come out in August of 1989. Due to the success of the original Phantasy Star, Sega was forced to transition and create Phantasy Star 2 on the Genesis. Not an easy task compared to the first, but without the original Phantasy Star, not many people would have cared to buy a Master System toward the end of its run. While the Sega Master System was meeting its decline in Japan and North America in 1987, the Master System would be launched in Europe during that same year. Sega struck a deal with 3 European countries, with distributors like Mastertronic of Great Britain, Master Games in France, and Areolasoft in Germany. This deal would be short-lived as Richard Branson, owner of Virgin, would purchase Mastertronic and consolidate other European gaming distributors. This would open the doors for the Sega Master System to be marketed in other European countries including Italy. Due to smart marketing and certain companies translating the games to suit their languages, the Sega Master System would revive interest in console gaming in Europe. Now keep in mind that during the video game crash of 1983, PC gaming was a revolutionary form of entertainment in Europe, especially in places like Great Britain and Germany. PC gaming was the reason why Chris and Tim Stamper created Rare, a second-party gaming company that would go on to create Donkey Kong Country in 1994. The success of the Sega Master System in Europe would inspire Sega to distribute the Master System in other parts of the world. The biggest example would be Brazil in 1989. Sega made a deal with Tectoy to distribute and translate Master System games for the Brazilian gamers. How well did the Sega Master System do in Brazil? Well, even when the Master System was officially discontinued in North America in 1992, the Master System did very well in Europe. But it was the envy of Brazil. Even in North America, where we were evolving from 60-bit to 64-bit here in North America, Sega was still producing games for Brazil. Do I have examples? Let's see. Taz and Escape from Mars, Mickey's Ultimate Challenge, Street Fighter II Championship Edition, and Mortal Kombat 3. That's saying something. Since 1989, the Sega Master System in Brazil has developed many variables, such as the Master System Compact, Master System Girl, a pink console for the girls, and Master System 3. In 2012, Tectoy has sold 5 million units of the Sega Master System. Since 1989, Tectoy has sold 8 million units and counting. From what I understand, they are still selling the Sega Master System there, marking the 30th anniversary of when it was marketed. That is absolutely mind-blowing and unheard of. Nintendo never sold one console to one country for 30 years, neither has Atari. The PlayStation series might be close in Brazil, but no cigar. So let's compare the sales from all regions. In Japan, Nintendo sold 20 million Famicom systems compared to 35 million NES systems in North America. Sega sold 1 million Sega Mark III consoles compared to 2 million in North America. Again, the Nintendo monopoly prevented Sega from breaking further ground in the gaming market. Nintendo sold 8 million units elsewhere, not doing well in Europe and Brazil while the Master System thrived there. Hell, the Master System was so popular in Europe, even the Soviet Union in 1990 was interested in the Sega Master System. While Nintendo was prohibited from selling their games to the Soviets, Sega on the other hand managed to strike a deal before the Soviet Union officially dissolved in 1991. That's a big deal. I can't tell you the number of Sega Master System consoles sold in the Soviet Union, but the fact that it reached the Soviet Union is unreal. Since the Mark III console was released in 1985, Sega sold 15 million units of the Sega Master System, not counting Brazil. But if you did count Brazil, that would mean that 23 million consoles were sold since 1985. Now imagine if Nintendo did not monopolize the gaming market and the Sega Master System was advertised more. What would have happened? While I think the Nintendo Entertainment System could have outsold the Master System, it would only be by a margin of maybe 1 million consoles instead of 60 million. Meaning that if Nintendo embraced competition, but still marketed intelligently, the NES could have sold 30 million units and the Sega Master System could have sold about 25 to 29 million units. but it tragically did not happen. While Sonic the Hedgehog was the last official game for the Sega Master System in North America, Sonic the Hedgehog 2 would be developed for Europe and Brazil. The Sega Master System was innovative for many features: 32 color, FM sound capabilities, backwards compatibility, RGB, and groundbreaking games. What do I mean by backwards compatibility? It means it is capable of playing games from the SG-1000 on the Sega Master System console, believe it or not. If you get a Master EverDrive cartridge, you can program SG-1000 games and play the games that were never seen in North America, including Girls Garden. To conclude this video, I'm going to compare the standard PSG 8-bit sound to FM sound, and it's obvious what the game in question is.
And just for fun, let's compare the two Sonic the Hedgehog games from the Sega Genesis and the Sega Master. Pretty cool, huh?
If you enjoyed this video, follow me on my website, theedrayreport.com, and support my Patreon if you please. Thank you and good day, ladies and gentlemen.